Welcome to 5% Radio, where it's all about learning like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Please be sure to share and subscribe. What's up, 5%ers? Welcome back to the show, and welcome to episode number 2. Today, I'll actually be sharing a story out of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which, by the way, if you've not read the book, is a phenomenal book, but I'll be sharing a story out of that book to kick things off, and then I really want to break this story down, exactly what this means for you and I and how it can actually impact our everyday lives. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you are on the British cycling team, so over in Great Britain, and you have not won anything outside of one gold medal in a century. Okay, so almost 100 years of mediocrity, failure, and losing. That's the situation that these riders were in. So get this. So since 1908, these poor British riders had, as a whole, won one single gold medal at the Olympic Games. And in the largest race of all, when it comes to cycling, the Tour de France, which a lot of you may be familiar with because of people like Lance Armstrong and other riders. But the Tour de France, they performed even worse in that. So one gold medal over almost 100 years is pretty bad, but 0 wins is even worse. The culture and track record of the previous 110 years was so terrible, had received so much negative press that literally top bike manufacturers in Europe flat out refused. They would not sell bikes to the British team because they didn't want it to affect their brand. So that they were literally so afraid that because these guys are so terrible that we don't even want you riding our bikes, because even if the competitors or other people that normally would buy our stuff saw you guys riding our bikes, it could affect our brand, it could hurt our sales, and essentially would negatively impact the company as a whole. But everything changed in 2003. Enter coach Dave Brailsford. This guy was known for being absolutely relentless in his commitment to a strategy that he had nicknamed the aggregation of marginal gains, or basically the compound effect of a bunch of small changes. So basically the idea here is that little things add up to big things. More on that later, but here's all of the different things that he tested in order to give these riders small advantages that eventually added up to a big advantage. And really, you'll see what this led to in the end, but he redesigned the bike seats to make them more comfortable. He rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip. He actually even asked the riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature while riding. Now, let me pause here. I don't know if you've ever ridden a bike for long periods of time. I've done, I think my longest day was like 33 miles, which is not a brag whatsoever. If you're serious about cycling, you're like, dude, that's a warm-up. It was a long ride for me, and I like to work out, but I am not a cyclist. But electrically heated overshorts, like I can't imagine what that would be like, and the guys and the gals on the team had to be thinking, like, what in the world is going on? But he also used biofeedback sensors to monitor how each athlete responded to each and every particular workout. The team had tested various fabrics and a wind tunnel to find out which one had lower wind resistance. He even had their outdoor riders switch from wearing their regular suits to wearing indoor racing suits because they were found to be lighter and more aerodynamic. So he's doing all kinds of things differently. He went on to, this is where for me it almost got like fanatical, but not in a bad way. He tried out several different massage gels. Imagine this. Okay, we're going to test, 5, 10, 15, 20 different massage gels to see which one leads to the fastest muscle recovery. Talk about something that you might not even notice a difference on for a couple days, but again, the aggregation of small gains. It's all of this adding up, the compounding effect of this. He hired a surgeon. Get this, he hired a surgeon to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chance of them catching a cold or getting sick. And then he also went on to test different kinds of pillows and mattresses to really optimize each rider's sleep. And then lastly, and this one really got me, they painted the inside of the team truck white, literally just so they could spot more of the small specks of dust that were possibly in the truck that they had missed, which could actually end up affecting the finely tuned bikes that these competitive cyclists ride. And here's my point. You might be thinking there's no way that little changes like those can matter that much. But if I were to ask you this, if I were to say, okay, can you name something over the next 24 hours that can completely and utterly destroy one or multiple areas of your life? Can you just name one thing that you could do, one tiny little choice, one small decision that you can make that could absolutely ruin your life in an area? Yes, you can. So on the flip side of that, then you can definitely think of something that you could do to positively impact your life that wouldn't be that big, but something small that would positively impact your life in the next 24 hours. A small change that could eventually, if you repeated it over and over and over again, and it becomes a habit, that could move into something that would move your life forward. So to give you a few examples of this, if you were to eat just 500 to 1,000 extra calories per day, and you did this for an entire year, that would add up to 52 or 104, depending on if you did 500 or 1,000 calories per day. So 500 to 1,000 calories extra per day equals 52 to 104 extra pounds per year. Or the opposite, if you were to cut, say, 500 to 1,000 calories per day, you could potentially lose, if you did everything correctly, you could potentially lose 52 to 104 pounds a year if you had that to lose, if you did things properly. There's tons of different things that would fit in there on the weight loss side, but on the weight gain side, when it comes to making poor decisions, if I was to go to, for example, my wife and I's absolutely favorite fast food restaurant when it comes to, we have not meal. I'm a health nut, by the way, so if I have not meal prepped that week, it always, and I mean always, ends up being 2 of the grilled chicken Chipotle Southwest burritos from Taco Bell. And if I ate just one of those little guys every day, it's an extra 500 calories. If I had eaten all of my regular food, I had eaten all of my regular meals and everything else, and then I go have one of those, just one of those, I could gain 104 pounds a year. 104 pounds a year. If I had 2 of them, that'd be 104 pounds a year. If I had one of them, I could gain 52 pounds a year. And another example of this is I literally have in the gym that I go to, I purchased and I have quarter pound, half pound, 3/4 pound, and 1 pound weights. Why? Because I know that if I can work out, let's say that I do a bench workout and I can work out with 227 pounds this week, and next week I can work out with 228 pounds. The week after that, I can work out with 230 pounds for the exact same rep scheme. I know that I can make small marginal gains that week over week. Yeah, I'm not really going to notice a pound or 2 pounds on the barbell. It's not really going to feel that different. I couldn't tell you, oh yeah, that was, last week I used 227. This definitely feels like 229 and a half. Like there's no way that I'm going to know. But over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, as long as my nutrition and everything else is in line, I can make small marginal gains that will eventually add up to something big. So let me ask you this. What is an area of your life that you could start making small changes? It's very, very, very small. I talked about in the last episode how much thinking affects everything, how your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions, and your actions lead to your results. So what is something small that you could start with right now that you could begin changing in your life that could have a radical impact 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road? Who could you be in 5 years? What type of relationship, what type of career, what type of finances, what type of health? I don't care what the goal is. If you could be a pastor trying to grow a church because you want to make a bigger impact for the Lord in your community, but what is the small marginal gain? What's the thing that you can start doing right now that would actually move you forward in a small, unnoticeable way at first, but that would add up over and over and over and over again? I saw one of my friends actually had shared this. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. There was a guy that had started this little trend of saving every single time he got a $5 bill. He would save the $5 bills and then he would just put them in a rubber band stack. And at the very end of the year, he ended up pulling everything out, and it was like, I don't know how many $1,000s he had, but every single time he had a $5 bill, he literally just peeled it off the stack instead of it going in his wallet, and he stuck that in a pile. If you saved $1 a day, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. You wouldn't really feel that. If you stop, here's an analogy. If you stop going to Starbucks every day, I'm not hating on you if you go to Starbucks, their drinks are delicious, and I love their black tea and their coffee, but if you were to stop going to Starbucks, let's say that you went there every single day and it was $4, over the course of a year, you'd save well over $1,300 between tax and everything else. You'd save a significant amount of money that would pay for, probably, 4 or 5 months worth of groceries, depending on how many people you have in your house, just by saying, okay, I'm going to make my coffee at home instead of actually going. So this is a small change. So let me ask you this question. A lot of people will look at something small and say, well, that doesn't matter. Or they'll look at someone that's already in a position where you think, man, that guy's doing great. And you'll say, why is he or she working so hard? For example, I've heard people ask someone who's super fit, why are you going to the gym? Well, let me put it this way. What day that they went, that they could have chose not to go, what day that they went actually produced those results? See, which one of the changes that Coach Dave, which one of the changes that he made to the cyclist actually got them to a place where they could start winning again, where they could start winning gold medals, where they could start actually performing well and achieving in their field? Which one of them? Which one of them should he not have done? See, what day of me treating my wife well and biting my tongue and choosing to say the right thing and help her when I didn't feel like it? And we all go through these things. If you're in a relationship with anyone, I don't care if it's a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, if you have kids, if you have friends, there is always tension to be had and to be felt in relationships if you allow it. But, tell me, please, what day did I treat my wife well that I could have chosen not to, that determined, okay, well, they have a good marriage because of September 17th back in 2019. That's why. No, it doesn't work that way. It's every single day. It's the aggregation. It's the compounding effect of these small changes. What's the little improvement that you need to make in your business or in your career for you to actually move on to the next level, for you to get that promotion, for you to actually cross, if you're a business owner, maybe you want to cross from 6 figures to 7 figures. If you're someone who is a teacher, maybe you want to go from teaching what you currently teach now to, running a school. If you're someone who is in music, maybe you want to go from memorizing a 6-piece sheet paper music. You have 6 pages laid out and you can memorize that, you can play that effectively, and now you want to shoot for an 8-page piece. What do you have to do between 6 pages and 8 pages? What do you have to do in your career to go from 6 figures to earning 7 figures in your business? What do you have to do right now that you've been putting off that you need to start doing? What's that 1% change you need to make? What day of you being disciplined equals your goal? Is it going to be the first day? Is it a small goal that, man, if you just did it one time, if you just started doing it one time, you would accomplish your goal? I don't know what that is. Maybe you want to run a 5K you've never ran before. You can trot that thing. You can go super slow just to say, I did this, and then you can actually begin to have this shift in the way you see yourself because you're like, if I accomplish that, I can accomplish this. But you've got to start with the 1% things. See, if I do 1% and there's still 99% left, that doesn't look like a big deal. But after 50 days of doing that, I'm halfway there. And is that going to be the way that it works? Like I said, if you're at 6 figures and you want to cross 7, no, you're not going to do it in 50 days. If you want to lose 100 pounds, it's not going to happen in 50 days. If you want a significantly better marriage, it's not going to happen in 50 days. If you want a significantly better life, if you want to change your finances, if you want to change any area of your life, it's not going to happen in a couple days. It's probably not going to happen in a couple months. See, there's a saying. I heard a guy say this. He said he's a speaker and he speaks literally all over the world. He's spoken in I don't even know how many different countries, but he said this. He said, sometimes people will come up to me after an event and they'll say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. It completely changed my life. And he said, while I appreciate it, he said, that's just not true. He said, because not one single thing is not going to quote unquote change your life. He said, the only thing that changes your life is what you do daily. Let that sink in. The only thing that changes your life is what you do daily. So what habits do you need to kick right now? What things do you need to maybe wean off of? And what things do you maybe need to replace? This can be something super, super, super small. I'm wrapping up here, but I'll give you one more analogy, and that is this. When I was coaching weight loss, which I did for several years, 3.5 years, I coached weight loss. I've done personal training. I've coached tumbling. There's been all kinds of other things in the health and fitness space that you can think of that I've coached and I've taught people in it. I love teaching people, and that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast. But whenever we would coach someone, the doctor that I worked for, shout out to Dr. Jen, but the doctor that I work for, we would always start with changing things slowly. So if the person came in, they weren't ready to commit to a full weight loss program, they were not actually ready to really make a massive shift, which most people are not ready to go from 0 to 100. It's just not long-term sustainable. They end up falling off whatever the change they're trying to make. But I would always tell them, if they're like, I'm not ready to go in, but, can I just pick your brain? I would always tell that person, start with your breakfast. Start with your breakfast. Change that. Make it healthy. After you've done that so much that it's like you're not even having to make that decision anymore, you just wake up and make that small 1%, that little decision, you make that. It's a third of your meals that day. If you include snacks, it's only 20% of your food that day. If you can change that 20%, whenever you get confident and comfortable, and that's a consistent thing, the 3 C's, whenever you get there, change your first snack. So you've changed your breakfast, then you change your first snack, and then I want you to wait. I want you to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until you're like, okay, gosh, what do I do next? And then I want you to change your lunch. And then once that is so comfortable, and then we would just continue this process. Okay, you're not drinking anything right now. Right now you're drinking a big gulp and 2 coffees and 1 bottle of water. Can you go from a big gulp, 1 coffee, and 2 bottles of water this week and just sustain that for a week? Can you make that small change and sustain that for a week? Because if you can, you should have enough personal momentum. You should have enough basically feedback that, okay, this went well. I could do 1 week. I could probably do 2 weeks, which will lead you into 3 weeks and a month and 2 months and 3 months. See, you have to have an appropriate feedback loop. A feedback loop is basically, it's kind of like if I did thing A, and then if thing A went well, then thing B will happen every single time. So if I did thing A and thing B did not happen, then my feedback loop would tell me that, okay, I have to change thing A. So the input that I am starting, that I'm initiating with, needs to equal the outcome that I want, or I'm going to have to change the input. So if you did what I talked about with, you went from the 2 coffees and the big gulp and all this other stuff, and you had 1 bottle of water, if you change that input to the other option of 2 bottles of water and 1 coffee and the big gulp, once you've changed that and you see what the output is, and again, you have to give yourself an appropriate window here. Sometimes the feedback loop can be a couple days. Sometimes the feedback loop could be a couple weeks, but more than likely, it's probably longer than that for any kind of change that you want to see. On occasion, you will see a really short feedback loop, but either way, you have to have some sort of a way that you interpret in what I'm doing working. So I did this and I got that. You have to have a feedback loop, but it has to be realistic. And here's my advice. If you don't really know what that feedback loop should be, I don't know what is a realistic time frame for me to expect a change within, go find someone that has amazing results in that area and just ask them, if I start doing this, when should that start happening? They'll probably give you a window, and then I would take whatever window they give you and maybe extend it a little bit, just so you're not kind of defeating yourself in the process of giving yourself a window. But I would take that feedback loop, extend it just a little bit, and then just say, okay, I'm going to stick with this activity for a minimum of this long before I even try to look up and check if there are the results that I want. I would encourage you to do that with every single tiny change you make. In closing, here's another thing that James Clear said about this chapter of the book. By the way, again, if you have not read the book Atomic Habits, I will put a link in the show notes. Just disclaimer, I'm not going to have a book that you need to go read in every single episode, but I just want to give you guys information. If you want to learn more about this type of content, here's where you can go, and I'll put those links in the show notes. But he said this, he said, you should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than your current results. So when you start making these small 1% changes, I want you to think about Coach Dave rubbing alcohol on the tires for the first time. He was probably not sitting there biting his nails with a stopwatch at practice wondering, will this be the thing that wins us an Olympic gold medal once again? Will this be the thing that gives us victory finally in the Tour de France? He understood that it was a process. And it's not about day one, it's about everything after that. It was the first day. But the combination of that change and the next change and the next change and the next change. So be less concerned about your results, and you're going to be more concerned. You need to be more concerned about the trajectory, aka where you're going. If I continue doing what I'm doing now, where will I end up? So here's today's key takeaway, the so what. Here's what I would challenge you to do at the end of this episode. That would be find one area to start making marginal changes, to start aggregating or compounding small changes, and take that area work on that area and stick with that area for the remainder of the next 30 days. Don't add 2 areas, don't add 3 areas, don't add 1.5 areas, don't change 2 things on the same area. Take one area, change that for the next 30 days. Here's one thing that changed my life. I started getting up at 6 a.m. and I completely quit sleeping in. Now, I fell back on this habit and there were consequences, negative consequences, and I am just getting back into this habit. And every single time I choose to do this, I'm like, man, why did I ever stop doing this? But I started waking up way earlier than I wanted to. I had no reason to be up that early. I kind of was setting my own schedule, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. Had no reason to be up that early. I'm naturally a night owl, but I heard a guy give a talk on how much this changed his life. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So if you want to join the 6 a.m. club with me, it's actually more like the 5:15 club or earlier some days. But if you want to join the 6 a.m. club, I'd highly recommend it. You can get a lot done in the mornings before you start working on your job or your self-employed business or kids wake up or whatever that is. But pick an area, stick with that area, and be relentless in that area. Don't hit snooze. Don't stop the activity after 2 days because you don't feel like it. Don't act on your feelings. Again, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, episode 1. Pick an area, stick with it, make marginal changes every single day.